Cross comes in. White with the header. 1-0 England.
And here comes Whitehead. It's gold for Great Britain.
Hi everyone, this is Track and Ball Podcast with myself, Richard Whitehead.
And myself, Ellen White.
On Track and Ball today, we have a former European, Commonwealth and World Champion. Not only just at the individual sport, but also he's a team member too. He's also a family man, and as you'll find out, a joker, a TV personality, and also an advocate for mental health charities. We have an Olympic, I was going to say champion then, but he's not a champion. He's an Olympic athlete that has held a national record for over 20 years. Imagine that, Ellen. 20 years holding a national record. And he is a pretty decent guy, as well as a pretty decent athlete. Tonight we've actually got Iwan Thomas. Here he is.
Hello.
How's it going, mate?
I'm good. The best bit about that intro, I just think, and he's a pretty decent guy. I'll take that over anything, actually. So yeah, it's nice to be decent, isn't it? It's nice to be a good person.
And thanks for that 20 quid.
Yeah, no problem. It's in the post.
No, thank you so much for coming on, Ewan. To start off with, obviously, Rich mentioned about your national record. What did it feel like to break the 400-metre record?
It was a bit weird, actually. In fact, I was speaking to an old man down my road the other day because he stopped me and he said, "Is it true you've still got the British record?" I said, "Yeah, 23 years." And it makes me firstly feel really proud, but also feel pretty old that I've had the record so long. But I didn't think I was going to get it when I did, because Roger Black had beaten it the year before me, so he'd only held it for 12 months. And I got it literally at the same meeting the following year. And I remember driving back in the car after having done drugs tests and so forth. And my mate Tim, my training partner in the car, went, "I can't believe it, mate. You know, I see you every day and we're just mates and we train hard. And here you are, the fastest ever athlete over 400 metres that Britain's ever had. And you're my mate." And I'm going, "Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?" And to think it's still standing is, it's kind of...
Is that on YouTube? Is that on YouTube, that?
I don't think it is, actually. No.
Is that because it's 23 years old and they didn't have YouTube then?
Oh, it's in black and white footage. It's a bit grainy. No, I put it up on my Instagram a while ago because quite often, it's weird, I don't really on social media talk that much about my athletics life as much as I probably should do. It's only now that I'm getting older that I am actually really proud of what I achieved, and you guys are still in it. So it's very different when you step away from sport. You kind of fall out of love with it. I did anyway, purely because my career was cut short because of injuries. And, I have so much respect for people who have the bravery and the right knowledge when to walk away, because it is really tough. If you get to walk away under your own terms, someone like a Jessica Ennis-Hill, then that is brilliant because, you've controlled your own destiny. But when you get injuries and you sort of, fizzle away, you never run or compete to the level you once were at. It's really hard to take it mentally. So
it's that kind of athlete's mindset as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think I hated my sport for a long, long time, which is bad of me because it's given me so much. But because I felt I was dealt a pretty horrible card in terms of, I had 3 good seasons and then lots of injuries. I kind of hated athletics for a long, long time, but I'm back in love with it now. It's all good.
And like, it's such... Go on, Rich.
No. I was just thinking, do you think that's something through life that you're now kind of going, actually, I really had a great time then, but there's still some unfinished business within athletics? Is that what you feel?
I definitely did for a long time because, quite frankly, I was 24 when I started getting lots of injuries and thinking, I'm never going to get back to what I once was. So I then get glimpses when I was sort of 28, 29 that, I might still be able to do it. And I think because no one has come through and as of yet broken my record, it kept the kind of door open for me a little bit in my mind. I kept thinking, maybe if I can have half a good winter, I might get back because no one is running really fast. I could still make the team. But in reality, I couldn't because my body was knackered. I was broken. I couldn't do it. But I think because I didn't have the opportunity to say farewell and shut that door, like you said, on the love of my life, which was my sport, I think I found it really hard to deal with the fact that I was no longer that athlete. And you almost have to accept you're getting older and you're not going to be that young, fit person you once was. And
plan for retirement.
I hadn't. So I think my advice for people who are still in sport who might be coming towards the end of their career. I'm not saying you, Richard, but I might as well have a dig at you. No, but you do sort of need a bit of an exit plan. You do need a strategy where you think, because you're a long time retired. You walk away from sport, late 30s, early 40s, whatever it might be, and you still, touch wood, got a lot of life to live. And unless you're a footballer who's earned 200 grand a week or 50 grand a week for the last 20 years, you're going to need to do something with your life. So there's not many sports people I know of who walk away from sport and can sit back, smoke a fat cigar and live on a yacht and do nothing. You have to do something. So I think you have to either reinvent yourself.
Would you want that? With the energy you've got, we see you on TV a lot, and you've got a lot of passion for what you do, and also a lot of energy. So you need to be doing something, surely.
Yeah,
but if you go back to when you were competing, you weren't just competing, like I said in the intro, on an individual event. You're also competing as a team event as well, with a 4x400 meters relay. Now, surely you've obviously enjoyed both those differently. Which one? The first question is, which one do you prefer, the 400 individual or the team event? And also, did you take away some tools that you learned over that time that you can now obviously use in later life?
Yeah, I think firstly, that when things are going well, it's like scoring a goal or whatever, you like the individual plaudits, you like the credit. I used to really love coming back through Heathrow security and the security guys going, nice one last night, I saw you beat the Americans, or whatever it might be. It's brilliant when you're running well, but then when you've got those injuries, it's really hard because whether you're a goal scorer or you're an athlete from an individual sport, the spotlight's on you. So when it's going well, it's amazing. But when it's not, and you have a bad race or a bad competition and you're injured, it's really horrible. So I kind of liked the 4x4 relay because I had that camaraderie. I had this sort of the brotherhood, if you want, where I wasn't just running for myself or my country, I was running for my three mates. But it was also a really weird dynamic as well. So if you take, for example, the European Championships, that year, Mark Richardson had beaten me 5 times out of 6 on the Grand Prix circuit. He should have beat me, really, but I ran a brilliant race on the night. So I won the 400 metres. He ended up coming third. Then he must have hated me. And the next day, we have to shake hands and be best mates and run together as teammates. Now, I've taken away his dream. The night before, I shouted his dream. He wanted to be European champion. He isn't. I am. And then all of a sudden, we have to be mates. And I think I learned quite a lot about myself in that situation, because in that particular competition, I could have taken last leg if I wanted. It's a bit of the glory leg. You come across the line. We were going to win the 4x4 as well. But I didn't. I said, Mark, do you want it? And he went, yeah. And I said, right, you're running last leg then. And I look back now and I think, wow, that was quite mature and also quite nice of me, because we were rivals, but we had to do what was best for the team. So I think running in the 4x4, I got a different adrenaline. I got a different buzz from that. But I'd say if I could choose only one, definitely the individual was the one for me.
Did you guys get to choose the legs then, or was there another person that would choose that?
We have a team management. I suppose it's like taking penalties or whatever order you might go. Yeah. You'd have your team management, you'd have your meeting the night before. But I think in 1991, the year before I sort of broke through, a few years before I actually started athletics in 92, but 91, the world champs in Tokyo, when the 4x4 won gold, Roger Black and the boys totally ripped up the rule sheet on that one. They just said, no, you know what? We're not going to put the fastest runner on paper on last leg, which you traditionally would do. They put Roger on first leg because their belief was, right, you get up there with the Americans, and then the likes of, John Regis and Derek Redmond would run on fear and then give it to Chris Akabusi, who won the individual, didn't win the individuals. I think he came second or third in the 400 hurdles. He had a big heart, so they knew he'd do it. So when it came to the Atlanta Olympics in 96, we all said to the team management, leave it to us. We're going to decide what happens. And we went for that same sort of strategy. So I had to run the first leg in the Olympics in 96, which is horrible because any athlete would tell you, you're out of blocks. It's the slowest leg. And on TV, you hear, oh, so-and-so ran a 43.7 split. And, oh, wow, that's quick. But they end up running 390 meters because they're taking the baton early or late, whatever, so it's different. But yeah, we normally would decide amongst this, depending who we were racing, what order would be best. But yeah, it was always to try and beat the Americans because they're the best in our sport.
And who was like your favourite teammates? Like, what was the favourite group of runners that you've had in that 4x4?
Yeah, definitely. There was a little bit of a divide really in our 4x4. So in fact, it's really weird. I'm going to bend over and get this. So in front of me, I'm looking at. I don't really come in this room, but I have got that poster there. So that.
Oh wow!
That was after the Atlanta
Nice.
4x4 silver. And in there, obviously, you've got Roger and Mark who were together, and then myself and Jamie Balsh. Now, me and Jamie used to share a room, which people thought was weird because we were teammates, but also we were rivals. But
Big
Jamie
personalities,
and me were really good friends. And like Roger and Mark were the more sensible two. So say, for example, that race there, we literally about to go live on BBC with Subaru or wherever it was. And like, I'd say to Jamie, right, you've got to say the word banana. Yeah, no, right, you've got to say carrot. Right, let's do it. And we're silliness. And you'd have Roger and then look at us like, oh, grub up. But we were just having fun.
Talking of Jamie Balsh, right, I've got a story from when you were, was it Kuala Lumpur? When you and him...
Oh, yeah, go on.
Was it 2009?
No, that was Kuala Lumpur.
1998.
1998, yeah, the end of a very long season.
Yeah, and you two were larking about, weren't you? While you were actually racing, were you like effing and jeffing to each other as you're coming down the home straight? What was going on there?
This was by far the best race of my life, and it's one of my big regrets. So I won't swear on your lovely pod, but Jamie and I used to have a bit of a joke where we'd call each other something. It's a 4-letter word, and it's probably one of the worst words you can say. So like, I'd walk in a room and I'd go, Jamie, you, and I'd say it. Anyway, Jamie wasn't having the best of years in 1998, and I was having a season of my life. So I'd already won the European Championships. I'd already won the World Cup in South Africa, and I flew in last minute to Kuala Lumpur for the Commonwealth Games. And as I said, we were good mates. We were roommates, and it was a semi-final. And Jamie had lane 2, and I had lane 4. And I went up to him just before we got into our blocks, and I just said, "Just follow me. I'll get you to the final." I said, "Just stick to me. I'm going to hit it to 300, and then I'll chill out." Anyway, so I just went off. Couldn't see Jamie. Didn't think anything of it. And then coming off the top bend with about 110 to go, all I could hear in the semi-final of the Commonwealth Games was Jamie's little squeaky voice shout, "You and you," that word. and I looked round and I was like, I'm having a laugh. And you could actually see it. And I waved to him. I actually say, "Come on then, you want some?" And literally I end up jogging, and I run a Commonwealth Games around 44.6. And I came through the line, and I remember I watched it back. Roger Black in the studio went, "Oh my God, he's going to run 43.7 tomorrow in the final." Because I literally was so relaxed. And then me and Jamie didn't realise how, I won't say it didn't go viral because it was before all that kind of stuff, but it went crazy. We walked back to the village to get some dinner that night, and we had a standing ovation by the All Blacks Rugby 7 team, and everyone just started cheering. And we were like, what's going on? And what you didn't know at the time, they'd played it all on the big screen. And on Australia TV, they'd dubbed our voices, and apparently, I've never seen it, but it was brilliant. So it had some guy pretending to be Jamie, said, "Here, Ewan, you want to go to the cinema, mate?" I'm like, "Let's go bowling. Let's go bowling." And we were talking all the way up the home straight. And the sad thing was, like, Jamie ran 44.8 in that race, and then come the final the next day, he had nothing. He came fourth. He had a bad year. And I literally, it just shows you the difference between, I don't know if it's the same with playing football, it probably is, but with running, you know, Rich, if you're relaxed, sometimes you surprise yourself and you run really well. Sometimes when you're a bit nervous and you're tight, you don't run as well. And in the final, I only just ran quicker than I ran in the semi-final the day before, messing about. So, that was probably my favourite race of my career.
I did exactly the same in Rio, you know, in the Paralympics. In the heats, I ran the heats like, literally, I was jogging it. And then the final, with obviously the pressure, I ran exactly the same time, but I felt gassed. I literally felt gassed. You're right, I tell you what,
that's pressure, and that's like everyday life. It's not just sport. I think some days you wake up, and if the sun is shining in your mind and you feel good things happen. I think sometimes it's like that when you're looking to have a bad day and get bad news, you'll have one of those kind of days. And I think the good example I can give with athletics, same sort of thing. Whenever I used to run a 200, I always used to think in my mind, right, this is only 200. You need to run quick, sprint. And I'd run tight. I'd be trying to run fast, and I'd only run like the same sort of time I would go through the 200 and the 400. So there's definitely an argument for trying to keep relaxed and just do your own thing. And I think I've taken that into life as well. I think, you know, there's so many crossovers between sport and world, you know, your life after sport.
Yeah, we want to move on.
Go on. No, I just wanted to ask one more. Like, how did you know when you did feel that pressure? How did you actually handle that? Because you know, I'm in a similar place where when I'm playing football, I'm relaxed, my mind's clear. Like it's such an amazing feeling. You feel like everything's going right, but then when you do have kind of a lot going in your head, you feel the pressure. Like how do you handle that? What tools have you got to handle that pressure, or did you have?
Well, I think for me, I love the pressure of being an athlete. I was one of those kind of athletes who liked the big occasions, who liked the big race. But what I will say is I definitely knew the difference. If I'd gone to a championships and everything was nice at home and my life was going well, you know, it was brilliant. But I think sometimes if you've got external problems going on, it would show that showing your performances. You have to be that very selfish person. I call it the switch as well. I think, you know, it's all very well running a quick one-off Grand Prix race, but you have to have a switch whereby you know when you've got to turn it on and everything outside just goes blank. Like, you know, the crowd, everything. I used to have that real tunnel vision when I raced. But I think in terms of pressure, it is interesting because, you know, someone like Mark Richardson, as I said, a great rival of mine, I don't think he could handle the pressure as well as I could. And I just think I was one of those kind of people who could do that. And I trained with people who were amazing, you know, were really good all through the winter training, were right behind me. And I think, well, they're going to run quick this year. But they never could. They only ran like 47.8 because they were the kind of sports people who heard on your marks, and instead of rising and growing as a person, they'd shrivel up and go, oh my God, it's a race, I'm scared. So being physically strong and fit is only half of the battle. You have to be tough up there in sports to do well, as you both know.
I think there's some great messages there, and I think they're like you said, they cross over to all sports, and there's definitely a role for athletes such as yourself that have retired in mentoring and supporting not just athletes in athletics but across sport, because those messages are current, and I think some athletes do lack that empathy from their coaching team. And I've found it that some of my coaching team before, obviously Keith, etc., didn't really have the knowledge and the experience for me to go into the major games and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a good one with Keith. I tell you, he's a great guy. But I think you're right. I mean, one of the problems I had, rest his soul, and I'm not being horrible about it, but my coach, bless him, because he hadn't been a high-level performer himself, I don't think he really understood that side of the pressure. So I think some modern coaches in sport who have been there, ex-players, ex-athletes, they know what it's like to hear on your marks, or, you know, to go up to take a penalty, or whatever it might be. They know the pressures you feel. I think for those coaches who haven't been there, it's quite hard for them to understand. And also with injuries, it's a massive part of it. So with me, I had lots and lots of injuries. And for example, you know, I remember just before the Commonwealth Games in 2006, it was my last track session. It was going to be the year I was going to quit. And I remember saying to my coach, Mike, I was doing, I think, 8 150s or something. And I got to like the 6th one, and I was like, oh, my hamstrings were really tight. Now, if he'd been an athlete himself, a good athlete, he might have gone, yeah, that's not a good sign. Ease off, just rest now. You've done all the hard work. But he was like, it's probably just a bit of cramp. Come on, let's give it last 2 reps. Really give it some. And I went, all right, Mike. And I ended up tearing my hamstring, missed the Commonwealth Games. So I think, you know, you do need that empathy. You do need that understanding. And also, you need to be a good man manager as well, because we're all different. You might be a sports person who needs, you know, that iron fist, that tough person. Get out there, you can do it, come on. You know, it's psyching you up. But you also, some days, might need that arm around the shoulder saying, it's going to be all right. I know you've had a bad week training, or your grand's died, or you're moving house, or whatever it might be. So I think, you know, in sport, everything has to be right. And you have to surround yourself with good people. And I think it's the same as any day life. You know, I think if you surround yourself with good, positive people, you're likely to have a good, positive life. And I personally, I won't mention names, but a couple of years ago, I cut out a couple of people from my life, because I remember watching an interview with Reggie Yates, actually, and he said, oh, I'm in a really good place. You know, I don't go to bars where I get hassled. I don't surround myself with mates who just drain my energy, or sponges, or, you know, just zap any positivity. I surround myself with good people. And I was like, that's a really good way to live, because I think, you know, if your friends are successful and ambitious and happy and kind people, it's not a surprise that you'll probably be the same like-minded person. If you hang around with people who are negative or don't want you to be the best version of yourself, then the likelihood is you won't realise your full potential. So I think as everyday life and as sport, surround yourself with people who've got similar ambitions and similar drive to what you have. Because one thing I didn't like training with people. I used to call them stalkers. So, like, you know, you say you're doing 8-2s, and you might have someone you've not seen them all session. I'm up to the 7th rep, and I've not even seen them. And on the last rep, they're going, "Come on, Ewan, let's have it." You know, and they're at the back. Like,
you have them in every sport.
Yeah,
I know you do, but I don't like people like that.
No, I agree.
No, so we want to kind of fast forward to like the future now, and British athletics. So what kind of state do you think it's in at the moment? What are your opinions on kind of athletics moving forwards? And I think this is where we lose sight. Sometimes we don't ask and talk to and communicate with athletes that have already been there and have the input. But now we're lucky enough that we've obviously got somebody that's at the helm that's obviously got that experience within the team. So what how do you think British athletics is holding up at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's a tough one this year, isn't it? I mean, the world is a strange place to be in at the moment with COVID and so forth. And, you know, for me, it's been a weird summer because normally I'd be the man on the mic at the big meetings, but there are no big meetings, there are no crowds. So it's hard to sort of analyse exactly where we're at. But I think definitely it's not in the best of places. It's, I was thinking earlier about, you know, it makes me sound old, but I think I was around during a bit of a golden era of athletics, you know, the likes of, you know, Colin Jackson, Linford, Steve Backley, Jonathan Edwards, Sally Gunnell, you know, Darren Campbell, Paula Radcliffe. We had really a lot of good household names. And I think over the last few years, you've had Mo, you've had Jess, you've had Greg, you know, you've had three amazing world-class world beaters, but the strength and depth hasn't really been there. So I just think it's easy to sort of criticise a sport and saying it's not doing too well at the moment, but you need those stars. You need those inspirational athletes who are performing on the big stage to get the new generation to want to be the next Greg Rutherford or the next Iwan Thomas or whatever it might be. So I think athletics at the moment, it feels to me, is going through another bit of a transitional phase. And I think, I just personally think it's an amazing sport, and I really hope it gets back to where it can be, because it doesn't, I don't know what you think, but it doesn't feel to me at the moment that, you know, it's talked about like it used to be. I mean, it used to be massive in the 90s. I mean, track and field, everyone loved athletics. It was a blue ribbon event, with all due respect to the Olympics. Everyone looked to the athletics. You know, I'll have probably swimmers and hockey players watching this thinking, shut up, no, it's not. But it is. Track and field it's where it's at. I know it isn't on the domestic sports scene, because we all know football is the national sport. But in terms of when it comes to those blue ribbon sports at the Olympics, athletics is amazing. It's given us so many good memories over the years.
100% agree. I love watching the Olympics for athletics. You know, that's what you turn your TV on, and it's such an amazing kind of celebration. And obviously, British athletics have just appointed Christian Malcolm. So if you were in his position, like what would you change first? Like, is there anything first and foremostly we've got to change this in British athletics?
I don't know if it's an overnight fix, but I think Christian is going to be a fantastic person steering that ship. I just think because he's not only been there and done it as an athlete, he's been a coach for a while. He's done a good job in Australia as well. And I think and I hope that he can relate to the athletes. I think he will have that empathy. I think he will be strict when he needs to be. And I just think it's a results-driven business. It really is. I mean, that's the beauty of athletics. It doesn't really matter if you don't fit in and the selectors don't like you. The stopwatch doesn't lie. You know, if you run fast enough or you jump far enough, whatever it might be, you're going to be selected. So it is a results-based business. So I just think it needs some athletes to step up. I just think it needs some athletes that we've got who might be getting fourth places or bronzes at championships to hopefully take that next step, have that transition where they can become world beaters. Someone like Dina Asher-Smith, she's absolutely a breath of fresh air for our sport. And I feel for her this year, because I just really wish the Olympics had been this year, because obviously off the back of being world champion last year, she was riding that crest of a wave, you know, and I just think, you know, fingers crossed she'll be good next year, it'll all be fine. But I just think we need more people like Dina, who not only are world beaters, they're great role models as well. There must be so many young girls watching her and saying, oh my God, I'd love to be like Dina Asher-Smith one day. And that's what she did. I mean, her story is amazing. She was a kit carrier in London 2012. I remember reading that she looked around the stadium and was like, wow, imagine if I could get here one day. And, you know, here she is, British record holder now and beating the rest of the world.
You spoke about being like surrounded by kind of good people now, like getting rid of some friends and you want like kind people. So like we've spoken to like Greg on the podcast, Tom Daly, about, you know, the impact of their coach and the support team. Like how did you initially start like working with your coach? Like, who was your support team during your time in athletics?
Yes, it was a bit of a weird one for me. So I was at university in London, And a guy called Dan Donovan, another 400 metre runner, used to come to Southampton every Thursday night. And we used to borrow his mum's Peugeot 205. And he said, come down to Southampton. You've got to meet this guy called Mike Smith. He's amazing. I went, who is he? Because I was really new to it. He said, oh, he's coached Roger Black, Todd Bennett, Chris Akabuti, Paul Harmsworth. He's really good. He's strict and he's a bit weird, but you'll like him. I was like, all right then. So I used to come down on a Thursday, and I honestly only trained 1 day a week. And I ended up running 45.9 at the Commonwealth Games. And my mum and dad would go, oh, well done. You must be training so hard and getting your studies done as well. I was like, I'm going out. I didn't tell them. I was out on the last 3 nights a week. I honestly only trained on a Thursday. And I ended up going to the Commonwealth Games, just getting a Welsh record, just missing out on the final in 1994. And I thought, wow, if I can do this off messing about at uni, what if I actually trained? And then literally when I finished my degree, I said to my mum and dad, they're like, what do you want to do? And I just remember thinking, I don't want to get a proper job. And I just said, why can't I move to that Southampton place and live near that guy, Mike Smith? And my dad said, right, I'll pay your rent for a year. You get a part-time job. So I moved to Southampton. I literally knew nobody. And my dad rented me a really tiny little bedsit thing. It was horrible, if I'm honest, but thank you. And then I got a job working. I worked in Next in the close. I used to do sort of like 9 to 5 at the shop, and then go home, get changed, go to the track or wherever we were training. And I trained, and I didn't tell anyone in Next I was going to be an athlete, or I potentially could be quite good. And I ended up, running well that year and went to the Olympics, got a silver medal, and just didn't bother going back to work. And that's how it kind of started for me. And then
it's amazing how sport starts, isn't it? It's amazing.
And I signed a 4-year deal with Essex, and then I ended up buying my first house. It happened really sort of overnight, but if it hadn't been for the generosity of my parents and then being able to financially provide for me or help me for that year, I wouldn't have moved down here. Because remember, lottery funding didn't come in till 1997. So it was all about, funding yourself unless you'd already performed and had a contract. So for me, without my mum and dad, I wouldn't have been an athlete.
And obviously you ran on the track, and that now you're obviously doing stuff on the road. Marathons. Talk to us about that, and like, how did that all start?
I hate long distance running. Honestly, that just started purely because when I've never even told this story, but when I was an athlete, so after 97, when I got the British record, I got offered quite a lot of money to do the London Marathon. And I said to my coach, Mike, they've offered me this much. He went, really? I went, yeah. And I'm really grateful he didn't let me do it, because it would have ruined me for the following year. He said, no, you can do that kind of stuff when you've retired. So I ended up never doing it. And then obviously years later when I retired, I thought, well, I'm not going to pay me, but I might try the London Marathon one time. So I've done 8 of them, and I am rubbish. Yeah. But I'm actually doing an even worse, crazy challenge in June. I'm doing a Centurion. I'm doing a 100-mile race, which I'm training for at the moment. And I don't know I agreed to it because I'm an idiot, but I said, well, I've done a marathon. Why don't I do an ultra marathon? Thinking, an ultra is anything over 26 miles. But then the girl I trained with said, well, you could do a 50, but everyone will go, that's pretty good. But if everyone wants to respect you in the marathon world and say, yeah, he's properly double R, do 100. I went, yeah, I'll do it. So I've signed up to do a 100-mile race in June. So I think I've got a half marathon at the weekend, and I've got a marathon in January. I've got something called the Pilgrim in February. Then I've got a qualifying 50-mile race in April. And if I qualify, then I've got my 100-miler in June. And I don't know why I've agreed to it, because I'm not built for London.
That is, yeah. I was just going to say, I run 10K in a game maybe, but 26 miles is crazy. But then obviously 100 miles. Like, how do you train for that? That's just crazy.
I pray for it. That's all. I was going to say that your fitness is different. It's hard. I've done some charity football games, and I am literally blowing after like 2 minutes. And people are going, oh God, I thought you'd be fitter than this. I am. But it's all
You're any good at football?
I'm all right. Yeah, yeah. I've scored at Wembley, which is a true story. Although quite embarrassingly,
a couple of times.
Yeah. Worst is, I pulled my hamstring when I scored. I remember I was doing some charity game, and it was a proper Michael Owen poacher goal. I literally slid in, scored, and I've done my hamstring, but I was so embarrassed. I just went, yeah, sub me off. And they went, you all right? I went, yeah, I've done what I wanted to do. I scored. But in reality, I pulled my hamstring. So, yeah, I scored there. I played at St James's Park as well. There used to be a programme years ago called The Match. But I'm not the best of football. I just was quite quick and quite fit. But, I would have loved to have been a footballer, though. Oh, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, but you can say you scored at Wembley. Like, I'll take that.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Scored at Wembley. But yeah, I love football. Yeah, it's one of those sports where I think all kids growing up, you know, everyone supports a team, and you know they want to be a footballer. They've got heroes.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
So, what team do I support?
The mighty
And what
Tottenham.
team?
Yeah.
Now, what team do you support?
I actually don't know.
Okay,
This.
so growing
Here
up,
we go.
So my dad is from Edmonton, so my dad's a Spurs through and through, support Spurs. So as a kid, he'd take me on the back of his motorbike and I'd watch Spurs. So the Spurs were my team growing up all through the 80s and the 90s. And then when I moved to Southampton in 1996, I started obviously following my local team. And I don't know, well, something basically happened. I got threatened in a nightclub.
Did you actually?
Well, yeah, what happened? You won't remember, but there used to be a programme called, I think it was called On the Side. Was it On the Side? No, hang on. They think it's, not they think it's all over. I'm going to have to look this up. Anyway, Gary Lineker, big pro. What was it called? I was a guest on the show anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's all over. Anyway, whatever it was a big BBC show, and I was a guest on there. And basically, cut long story short, it's scripted. They said, unless you can come up with a better gag, these are the jokes. And you sat in a room all day. And on the programme, I basically told a joke about Southampton. I slated, it was quite a funny clip. So Southampton years ago, there was a guy called, I think it was Ali Dyer, I think his name was. And someone had written to Souness pretending they were George Weah's cousin, saying this guy's really good. You'll have to look up the clip on YouTube. It's so embarrassing. So this guy basically, Southampton was short of strikers. And basically this guy had given a false CV pretending he was George Weah's cousin, and you've got to sign this guy up. He's mustard. He's brilliant. He comes over. Apparently didn't even have time to do a training session. Anyway, Matt Letizia goes off injured. They'd run out of subs and they had to bring this guy on, and he couldn't even kick a ball. So literally they saw him turn up. He looked big and strong. Like, yeah, he'll do. We've read his CV. And they brought him on. He was so bad. They took him straight off. So I basically, in the programme, I had to say Southampton are so well, they'll play anyway. I had to say Southampton. Anyway, I went out like the following Thursday in the local nightclub, and I got threatened with a bottle from a girl. So don't you ever slate my beloved Southampton again. And I was like, oh my God. So from the next day, I went in the local papers to say, I love Southampton. So, yeah.
I found that on Wikipedia.
I'm a season ticket holder. You can't believe Wikipedia, can you?
Mate, I believe everything about you on Wikipedia. It's all true.
Yeah,
Are you actually a season ticket holder? That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got 2 season tickets. Yeah. So I've been for years. So yeah, I go and watch Southampton. Well, not anymore at the moment, but yeah, I go and watch Southampton. So they're my team ever since probably 1996. I've been following them, and yeah, I'm an ambassador for the Saints Foundation, which is a charity affiliated with the club. So yeah, I love Southampton. It's a brilliant club, and I think, you know, I actually said that I'm actually going to take it back, Richard. I think you might win the league this year.
Whoa.
Not West Ham. I'm a West Ham fan. Say West Ham, please.
West Ham. Okay, I like West Ham. I remember going to West Ham as a kid. I went to West Ham. They used to have really small goals, not like small as in that way, but going backwards. Back in the day, West Ham had quite a small pitch.
Upton Park, yeah, I love that stadium.
Yeah, years ago I went there as a kid. But no, I think Spurs will do quite well this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah.
Okay, let's take it back to athletics, the World Championship, Athens. So you come second, 0.18, is that right?
Yeah, the 4x4,
Yeah, 4x4. And years later, find out performance-enhancing drugs by USA team member. Then you weren't awarded the gold until 2010. Like, what's that feeling like? Can you describe it?
Yeah, it pains me. I'll tell you even something worse. And I don't want to be horrible to British athletics, but the way it went about wasn't ideal. So basically, we just missed out in the 4x4. They'd beaten us at the Olympics a year before, really close. We nearly beat them the following year. So we're on the rostrum, silver medal. You know, I think, you know, fair play, because I messed up the 400 as well. I came 6th, and I was like ranked 2nd in the world that year. So I had a really bad 400 final. Got a silver in a relay, and I thought, oh, fair play. At least I've salvaged something from the year. And then years later, in fact, 2 athletes, and I kind of respect them for it. So Jerome Young and Antonio Pettigrew later in their careers failed drugs tests, and they actually put their hands up and said, if we're going to be honest, we were cheating as far back as 97. So retrospectively, this got out in the press, and they were like, hang on a minute, we're going to strip you of the medal. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm angry, of course, because we haven't had the 10 years first of all, we didn't get the lap of honour. We didn't get that moment. We should have been world champions. We didn't get the 10 years of sponsorship money or, you know, the kudos of being a world champion. But then it kind of gets worse because I'm thinking, well, that's all right then. At least I'm going to get a gold medal. And as Richard will tell you, medals, they really mean something because wherever they're from, they'll represent that championship. So, for example, the Athens medals, on the back, they're engraved with loads of Greek mythology and they look really, really nice medals. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get the gold version of that. The athletes are either going to be stripped of them, they'll physically give them back, or the IAAF must have some in a vault and we'll get them. And I get a phone call, and this is what pains me. We've never, ever been properly recognised for it. I met a representative from UK Athletics in a pub car park in Birmingham and got given my medal. And I remember getting in my car and I looked at it, and I swear to you now, it's under a bed. I've never looked at it since because it's not the exact medal. All it is like a Christmas joke one. It's a gold medal and it's got written on it, IAAF World Champion 97. And that is it. There's no Greek mythology. It's not the exact replica. So I literally got that medal, threw it under a bed, and I've never looked at it. It doesn't mean anything to me. It means nothing to me. And it's really sad because, you know, over the last few years, and rightly so, the sport has given other athletes their moment in the sunshine. And I think if I'm honest, I did get wind of the fact we were going to have it this year, but obviously things have changed. So it'd be really nice for me, Jamie, Mark and Roger to be able to have our moment in front of a British crowd and just say thank you for all those years ago. But in reality, truth hurts that it's just a rubbish medal under a bed somewhere. So it's a real shame. And obviously the biggest tragedy of all of that is Antonio Pettigrew actually took his life, which is horrendous. So, you know, he obviously failed the drugs test, and I don't know whether it was the shame. He couldn't live with it because he was a coach in the States. And he was found dead in his car like years later. So he's not even with us anymore, which is really sad because, you know, listen, I hate him for what he did, you know, to strip me of medals and, you know, to have the longevity, because he was around for a good 10, 15 years. I had 3 years, I think. But that's not fair. He cheated. I didn't. You know, but rest his soul. I think it's so sad that he... No, so sad that he feels so... Obviously, he must have been hurting so much that, you know, sport took his life, which is horrible.
And what do you think of the state of athletics with anti-doping at the moment? For instance, we as current athletes, like myself, Alan, and the rest of athletes, have to obviously take random drug tests, and obviously it's really tough at the moment with the pandemic, but we're getting tested obviously at sessions. Do you think it's as robust as it needs to be? Do you think there's countries out there that need to be looked at again, obviously after the Russia, America and Jamaica issues?
Well, I think without a doubt there's countries that aren't as stringent and as strict as we are, which is a real shame because, as you said, you guys are still getting tested. My record, well, I got tested 4 times in a week once. I remember I was out in South Africa and I was running PBs for fun. I was literally in the shape 97 and I kept getting tested. And I'm all for it because, yes, it's an inconvenience, and especially, as you know, I don't know if it's the same after 90 minutes of football, but I think the worst drugs tests are the ones where you've won a race or whatever and you get selected and you're like, yeah, cool, and you can't go to the toilet. I've had that where literally I'm sitting there drinking water and I've waited 3 hours and I think I can go, and I give a partial sample. I've got to go again. But
that's the worst,
but the best ones, it'll be different now, but this leads me nicely to, I think it was 98. I was running in Riga and I got a drugs test and I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. And back then, you could have alcohol. It was the best ever. So in Eastern Europe, instead of having water, they had beer. Because obviously, you may not drink, but if you do drink, you know, on a night out, for me anyway, if I've had 3 or 4 pints, I can't stop going. I'm like a racer. So I was like, literally, I finished this race, and I remember I got selected. And I said, you got any beers? And they went, yeah, beer, no problem, beer. They brought out a crate of beer, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember I'd had about 6, right? And I could clearly go to the toilet. I still can't go. And it was even better than that. Steve Backley was warming down in the warm-up track. And I said, can I go out there? And they said, as long as we stay with you, it's not a problem. I went to the warm-up track and sat down and had some beers with Steve Backley. He wasn't even tested. So I remember I had a few too many, and the team manager had to help me write my name down properly and stuff. But yeah, it's way different now. But I remember, drugs testing is so essential, and I think it's brilliant, and it needs to be as strict as it can be. But it is really annoying when you hear rumours or you hear of other countries' labs that aren't very strict, or, you know, an athlete will get told when they're going to be tested, and, you know, that defeats the object. The whole point is they need to be able to turn up. In fact, I used to get tested so often. I remember his name, a guy called Derek Stevens, who was my drugs tester. And I reckon honestly, I was tested at least once a week. And sometimes he'd turn up on a Sunday and I said, Derek, I'm going training. He goes, well, I'll have to come with you. I'm going, yeah, but I'm doing like cross country today, and we do like fell running or sand dunes. And I remember he had to watch me. So I the toilet. He was literally running through the trees with me and stuff. And one day Derek didn't turn up. And I was like, this young guy turned up. I went, who are you? I said, where's Derek? And they were like, oh, you two have got too familiar. So he's assigned to someone else. I was like, oh, man, I got really used to Derek. I used to like him. But yeah.
You mentioned before in the podcast about suffering a number of injuries in your career. Like, how did you cope with those injuries? Like, did you have someone that you could speak to, your support team? Like, how did you actually handle those injuries?
No, I think injuries were the worst thing ever for me, and I didn't cope. When I look back at it now, you know, I used to really, as I said, it didn't properly help that my coach didn't really understand injuries. Yeah. And I think for me, when I was injured, I'd go into a little shell, and I could never tell my friends how low I was feeling, because in my eyes, I was their training partner who was traveling the world, who had all these medals, who had a nice house, had a nice car, whatever it might be. And I was almost in my head thinking, well, I can't tell them I'm feeling low, because really, what have I got to be depressed about, where, you know, they're working 9 to 5 jobs and then rushing to get to training, whereas I'm a full-time athlete. So I think when I got injured, instead of talking about it and saying how low I was feeling, I kind of shut myself away. And I think the worst thing to do is to watch your own sport. I used to watch athletics when I was injured, and I used to sit on the sofa literally in tears thinking, oh my God. And I mean this with respect. I'd watch people like Sean Baldock win the 3As in 45.5, and I think, oh my God, I could run 45.5 with my arms tied behind my back last year. And you're helpless. You're injured, and there's nothing you can do. And it's a weird one, because people always used to say to me, stay positive, you'll heal quicker. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. But believe it or not, I tried it once as an experiment, right? Because 2006, I think before my last injury, I remember thinking, everyone's always told me, be positive, you'll get back quicker. And I always thought, what a load of rubbish. And one time I did get injured, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep really happy. The mind is so powerful. And honestly, I got back from a torn hamstring in like 10 days. And it's like, how is that possible? So like, I wish now I'd done that my whole career, because it is very hard to remain upbeat and remain positive. But I think you can't lose sight of that end goal. You've just got to be smart and not rush back from those injuries. And I was guilty of that quite a few times. You know, I'd probably need 2 weeks off, and I'd have 2 days off, and I'd go, yeah, I think I'm all right. And I'd run on it, and I'd make it even worse, purely because I didn't want to miss out. And I knew every day I didn't train, Michael Johnson, all the other Americans were getting fitter and faster. So I think you feel alone, if one word could describe it. Me personally, I think when you're injured, it doesn't matter how your support net group are or your partner at home. I understand, are you all right? They don't understand. Well, they might, but you think they won't. You know yourself. You think no one knows what I'm going through. And it's a really, I suppose it's like if you were a city worker or a school teacher or something like that, and someone said to you, right, you can't teach for the next 6 months. And by the way, when you go back to teaching, you're not going to be half the teacher you were. You're going to have to gradually get back to it. Oh, and a younger, better teacher might have come through and taken your class. And that's how you feel when you're injured, because you just think, every day I'm missing, my rivals aren't. Horrible.
I watched a video that you did with Prince Harry, Ewan, and the Heads Together campaign, and it. I think for me, you're a great mental health advocate around communication and talking. Can you talk to us about how important that was for you to be involved in that campaign, and what? Obviously, you went through, like you say, those dark times yourself, but I think it's so good that you're willing to share those experiences to educate those that are in very similar situations to yourself.
Yeah, I just wish perhaps that I'd listened to my own advice I'm giving now when I was the younger version of myself, because as I said, I went through those years where I bottled it up, where I felt I couldn't talk to anyone, where I really felt to open up was a sign of weakness. And especially coming from a sport where people respected me. I was that big, strong guy who mentally was with it. No one could get inside my head before a race. All of a sudden to go, hang on a minute, I'm not big and strong and I'm really struggling here. I thought that was a sign of there's a chink in my armoury here. and I'm not the athlete people might think I am, and that's totally rubbish, because I think it takes more guts and more bravery to stand up and go, do you know what, I'm not all right here. And I think it's getting more accepted, and perhaps I might be wrong with this, but I think more with blokes as well. Blokes in the past have felt, oh, I'm all right, I'm a bloke, I'll get on with it. And you know, you don't have to be on your own. And I think when I got involved with Prince Harry's charity, it was just the most bizarre situation to get invited to the palace to go for, you know, a barbecue. And there I was flipping burgers with someone who fundamentally, yes, he's part of the royal family, but he's a really good guy, you know. And he was talking about his problems. And I just thought, oh my God, you can be a member of the royal family and get depressed. You could be a white van man called Dave and you might get depressed. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. It doesn't matter how many noughts you've got in your bank. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to get down days, you're going to get them. And I've learned talking about it is really good. Like, for example, recently a friend of mine has died, and it was horrific. It's only 2 weeks ago, and I was really low, and I just thought, what would he want me to do in this situation? I won't swear, but I know what he'd say to me, and it'd tell me to pull my socks up and get on with it and live my life to the fullest, like he did every day. And I think by talking about it, we got together outside the gym, all the people where I used to see him every day in the gym, and we all got together and we all had a cry, and we're all now doing things. We're planning things in the future in his memory to make sure his name never leaves us, and we'll never forget Aaron and the good times we had with him. But, you know, I suppose what I'm saying is, whatever happens in life, what I've learned with maturity is, you could be going like this and thinking life's great. Something's going to come and kick you in the teeth. It is, because that's life. You're going to lose a loved one. You're going to lose a job. Your dog's going to die. Things are going to happen. Things will happen. And it's just how you deal with it and how you sort of shimmy around it a little bit, because you are going to face bad times. And hopefully in your lives, you're going to face more good times. But it's inevitable. We're going to come up against trauma and we're going to have horrible things happen. And I think if you can talk to people, even though it may feel horrible to talk, even it may feel alien to talk, and you think, I can't, I'm embarrassed to say this. By talking to someone, it will help you. And I just think, I hope people nowadays can realise that there's so many people out there. And I think also when you are feeling low and we are having a bad day, this is maybe the beauty of social media. People reach out to one another. Strangers have been really kind to me. And there are good people out there. And there are many people in this world going through similar times as yourselves. And I think, you know, especially with COVID in the uncertain world we live in, it is scary out there. But you've got to realise you're not alone, and it's good and okay to talk.
Yeah, obviously, really sorry to hear about your friend. That's yeah. But what you're saying, especially for like our viewers and people out there listening, you know, some of them things will be really important to them and hopefully help them about speaking out, being able to kind of be the person that is able to talk as well. And me and myself and Rich were talking recently about, you know, the highs and lows of our sports, and in particular, like returning back from like a major competition or something like that. How are we able to deal with the come down of returning from such a major competition? And, you know, for me, when I returned from the World Cup in 2019, I had that massive come down, and my husband felt the same thing. We were both completely invested in the tournament. And, you know, returning home, going to normality, it was such a strange feeling. Like, have you ever come back and had that come down, as well as like your family, you know, experienced it together?
Definitely. And by the way, you had a smashing World Cup. That was amazing. So
Thank you.
I can understand how you feel, because when you're in that bubble, for you, that World Cup, and you're playing so well, and as a team, you're all brilliant, and you're scoring, and you're getting the adoration, and you're getting messages from home, and all of a sudden, you come home, you shut your door, and which is lovely. You're back to your family, you're back to normality, but you're angry. Hang on a minute, no one's applauding me as I walk up the stairs, or whatever it might be, and you miss that. And I've had it myself, whereby, you know, say for example, 1998, I won the European Championships. I remember I had a race in Glasgow the weekend after, and I felt rubbish. I couldn't get up for it. I was looking at the crowd going, it's all right. There's only about 5,000 people in here, though. And all of a sudden, nothing can relate to the high. And in fact, before that, I remember when I won the European, I went out for a meal with my coach. I was having a documentary done about myself. I went out with a documentary team. And I remember having a meal, and I just went, I just want to go back to my hotel. And I went back to my hotel, and I actually cried. I cried. I was upset. I was like, what happens now? Like, I wanted to be European champion. I've won it. It doesn't feel any different, you know. And all of a sudden, I had that realization that I'd set out to do something that season. I'd done it, and how was I going to get myself back up? And it's the same as, I suppose, any walk of life. It might be someone who might have had a promotion at work, or something might go really well, and then they're going to have a tough month at work, and it's really quite hard to sort of, I suppose, get back into the swing of normal life. But then I personally would just set other goals. So you had your goal of the World Cup. You had your target of how many goals you might wanted to score, whatever it might be. And then you've come back from that, and it's really hard then to think, I've got to wait another 2 years or however long it is to the next tournament. But then perhaps change your goalpost, if you like, a little bit. You might say, okay, well, do you know what? That was amazing. That's done now. I've put that in the locker. What I'm going to do next year from a club, I'm going to try and score X amount, or whatever it might be. Or I'm going to try and win the league. Yeah. So, but it is hard, because I think life, people look at sport. I think outsiders sometimes look at sport and they just think, wow, what a lovely life you've got, traveling the world. And like, you only run around the track once. They don't realise the 11 months of hard work, or 7 days a week that go into having that one performance. And they don't realise the sort of mundane, like, I speak to Rich, I speak to you a lot, and I admire you, and I joke about it, saying, you're going to have to retire soon or whatever, but I joke about it, but I massively respect you to have the motivation to still go out and train, because it is a very lonely sport, track and field, because when you're on your own, it's all very well, as I said, winning the races, but when you're at Loughborough track and it's pouring down with rain and you've got Keith on his little push bike going around or whatever it is really hard. No, because you're not getting, but you know what I mean? You're not, no one's going, oh, I love Richard Whitehead when you're running around the back straight training. It's hard. And you sometimes have to really dig deep. But one thing I would say, and I alluded to it earlier, my career being cut short, at the moment you guys are doing what you love doing, whatever. And I think whoever's listening to this, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an international sports person. You could be a club runner. You could play football for your local team or whatever it might be. Really enjoy it, because one day you won't be able to kick that football, or you won't be able to run around that track, because, you'll be getting older or things will happen. And I think when you have youth on your side, you kind of take it for granted. I certainly did. All those seasons, 96, 97, 98, I thought, this is going to last forever. I remember I got my MBE. I ignored it. I remember I got the letter saying you need to get an MBE, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I actually thought it was a spoof from my mate, so I ignored it. They wrote to me 3 times. I thought, oh, wow, is this actually real? And then I got a Madden Tussauds waxwork, and I took that for granted. I was like, and someone said to me, you're the only second athlete ever being Madden Tussauds you've been voted for. I went, oh, that's cool. Not that I was arrogant, but I just thought, this is a start of my career. But in essence, that was the end of it. 98 was the end. So you never know how long you're going to have. So I would say, whatever you do in life, give it your all and really enjoy it, because you don't know what's around the corner. You really don't.
And you've matured as well, haven't you? You've matured over the years. And I think for you, your focus has definitely changed. And you had little Teddy, and he's like your shining light. But that wasn't an easy journey. And before you talk about you, and I remember getting a text from one of my friends, some of you know as well, and they said, "Oh, Ewan's had a little boy, but there's been complications." And my heart sank, and I was like, and at that point, I knew that obviously how you are, that you'd be going through it. So can you explain about your circumstance and how for you, it was really important to kind of put everything into perspective about what life really means.
Yeah, I mean, by far, Teddy's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and I'd swap all my medals. I'd give them away now to be with my boy, because it's like, I kind of wish now I'd become a father years ago, but I wasn't ready. I was that selfish sportsman. It was all about me. I didn't care about anyone but myself, and it was horrible, but that's how you have to be, I think, in sport to get where you want to get to. And when Teddy came along, it was amazing, but also so traumatic. So he was born. I remember, I won't go through all the birth, but it was quite funny. Just everything seemed to go wrong, getting to the hospital, and me buzzing the buzzer. My part, she's giving birth now in a car park. They all come out with towels, and she wasn't. She was just, going into labour, whatever, having her contractions, but I was panicking anyway. So Teddy was born, and he was perfect. Like, I remember, I phoned my parents crying, and, I don't really show that much emotion. And I was like, I came home the happiest man in the world. I thought, oh my God, my dad, he's perfect. And then I got a phone call 4 hours later saying, you need to come back to the hospital. He can't breathe. He's in intensive care. And I was like, what? I've just seen him. No, you need to get him now. And I was like, wow. So I went to intensive care, and he was plugged up to all these machines. And I said, what's happened? And they go, well, we think he's got fluid on the lungs. He can't breathe. Might be pneumonia. I said, okay. And then anyway, cut long story short, it wasn't. It was something called strep B, which we'd never even heard of. And ever since I have heard of it, I try and push people to learn about it. So basically 1 in 4 women naturally will have this bacteria in them. And for some reason in the UK, we don't routinely screen for it. The midwives won't even tell you about it, whereas most European countries do. It's a cost thing, but the saddest thing is to have a test, it's only 25 quid if you go private. And all it means, if the mother is a carrier of strep B, she goes on a drip when she gives birth and you can't pass it on. But the sad state is, if you do pass it on, even after hospital treatment, 1 in 10 children will still die or be left brain damaged. So I'll come on to that bit. But anyway, so yeah, he was in intensive care, and then a nurse said, listen, his breathing sounds weird. Check for the strep B. So they checked for it, and he had it. And I was thinking, what on earth do I do? I felt so helpless. I didn't know what to do. And basically over the next 10 days, he just deteriorated. So he went from being in an incubator with a few tubes here and there to them taking us aside and saying, look, it's really pretty serious here. And I remember, I think it was day 4 or 5 different doctors I've never seen rushed in to his incubator and took him away. And I said, what's going on? And they said, because basically you have a blood test and the results don't come back for 24 hours. They said, his blood levels, which is, I think, illustrate his illness, have gone from like 22 to 140. I was like, is that bad? I said, we need to take him now. We got your permission to do lumbar punctures and stuff. I went, oh my God, I was in bits. I went, just do what you have to do. Poor thing. So no, they did all these lumbar tests to see if the fluid had gone into his brain, if it contracted meningitis. And it was just then a waiting game and hoping the antibiotics would work and so forth and all the treatments. And then I think it was on day 10, he started getting better. And then eventually he was well enough to come home. But then the weird thing was that wasn't the end of it. So basically we were told quite likely that he'll have cerebral palsy, but we won't know. I said, well, how long till we can tell? And they said, till at least 1 year. So we had to wait till he was at least a year old before any symptoms would show properly. So touch wood, he's nearly 2 now. And he's the apple of my eye. He's my life. He's absolutely amazing, although he is terrible twos, tantrums and all that now.
I know what that's like, mate. I know what that's like.
Yeah, but it was just the weirdest feeling to go from the happiest feeling in the world to becoming a father, to then all of a sudden, like, your baby might not make it, and if he does make it, he's likely to be seriously ill for the rest of his life. And he still isn't. He's great, but he still gets a lot of illnesses, so his immune system isn't so great. So, like, he get lots of colds, he get fluid on the lungs, but it's fine. That's just a little kid growing up. But yeah, it's amazing, and I now have so much respect for people who have got kids and are still doing sport, because I just think, how on earth? Because I haven't. I mean, I have not slept for 2 years. I've not had a good night's sleep for 2 years. It is tough. It's tough.
As part of this podcast, we always ask our guests about legacy. Like, how would they like to be remembered? So, Ewan, how would you want to be remembered?
Crikey. I think I'd like to be remembered as someone who gave it their all and did it with a smile on their face. Is that a legacy? Is that enough?
Is that it? Wait.
I really like that. I really like that.
I thought it was lame.
Rich, sometimes less is more, I think that's quite good. Someone who gave it their all and did it with a smile on their face.
Okay.
No, do you know what I would like to be remembered for? I think, forget myself as an athlete. I think I'd love to think I'm someone who can help others. I mean, you must get it. I get so many messages every day from people on my social media going, you're an absolute idiot, but your stories make my day. Or I've been having a really bad day at work. I watched you being an absolute tool on your Insta stories, and it's made me smile. It's cheered me right up. Thank you very much, or whatever. I just think we're not here necessarily for a long time, but try and be here for a good time. There's a time to be serious. There's a time to grow up. I get all of that. But I think if you can help others along their journey in life to lead a happy and good life, then I'd be really happy if I could just help one person. In fact, with the strep B, I try and push that message out there. That's why I'm doing that 100-mile race for them. But I've had so many messages from people going, I've never even heard of it, but I'm 6 months pregnant. I've been tested and I am a carrier. So thank you. I'll get antibiotics. And I just think, wow, if I've helped one family, I don't want anyone to have to go through what we did with Teddy. And I just think if I can just help one person be okay. In fact, the guy, I'm smiling when I say it, but the guy who's doing my garden at the moment, he got in touch with me because his baby was born in Southampton with strep B, and the only reason they knew the signs to look for was they'd seen me on TV talking about it. But he's still charging me full price to do my garden. I was like, what's happening with the invoice? He goes, we'll sort it out later. I said, you sort me out. He goes, no, it is what I quoted. I went, oh, all right then. But no, it's fine. Just by helping one person, but he needs to pay more. He needs to do my fence for free. I'm not having it.
Yeah, he definitely does. So Ewan, we also finished with 10 quick fire questions as well. And these are just random things. So we'll start with those, and then we'll finish. So first one is.
I can't believe we're finishing soon already. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome, cheers. Yeah, first one, track or ball?
Track. Sorry.
There you go. That must be about.
I'm devastated.
7-1.
I think it is. I'm losing horrendously here. What's your greatest accomplishment in life so far?
Teddy.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah, 100%. That's another pod for you.
Wow.
100%. My old place was haunted. I used to live in a place called Victoria Country Park, and when I moved there, all the taxi drivers go, I can't believe you live here. You must know about the Grey Lady. I went, what? And I read up on it, and basically I used to live in an old military officer's mess, literally just down my road, and there's a chapel, and there's a woman called the Grey Lady who threw herself off when her husband died because it used to be a military hospital. And I never really believed that was haunted until after about 4 years of living there, I changed all the carpets in the hallway for wooden flooring, and I swear to God, the night I did it, I used to hear someone walking up and down outside my bedroom every night. And before you say anything, Rich, I was there alone. Before you say, that was a girl. That was a girl trying to escape. No.
That was a good night.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
I don't want to get myself in trouble, but that'll be on a motorbike riding too fast. That kind of. Although I have jumped out of an aeroplane and I've done a bungee jump and I've swum with sharks. To
name a few.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I don't know. I suppose the biggest risk you will take in life is to try. I just think the biggest risk I ever took was maybe trying athletics. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ewan, can you sing?
I once did Stars in Their Eyes. I was Chris Martin from Coldplay, but don't ask me to sing. Please.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what would you sing at a karaoke?
Okay, I was going to say, we need a karaoke. Us three have a karaoke night out. But I did sing The Scientist from Coldplay when I did Stars in Their Eyes. It was tough.
Was it?
Yeah.
How'd you get on? All right.
Yeah, I did all right. I'm not going to give you a little rendition. You've got to wait for a night out.
Okay, we'll wait then.
When are you your happiest?
When I see Teddy's face in the morning, that's when I'm my happiest.
Yeah.
That's really sad, isn't it? I'm sounding like a wild soppy dad.
Oh, I think it's really nice.
Yeah,
it's really nice, yeah. What's the silliest thing you've ever got upset about?
Oh, I cry at films. I'm a right softie, so anything slightly emotional. I watched that DIY SOS the other day, the big build. I was gone. Within 2 minutes, I'm crying my eyes out, and I have to pretend I've got sun in my eye. Anything that sort of pulls on the heartstrings, I cry. I do cry quite a lot.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, in 10 years, I just hope to see myself in a happy, content place.
Nice. Your friends, how would they describe you?
An idiot. How many? Are you allowed swear words on there? No, you're not. They call me a something. No, I think you know what? I think my friends would describe me as just like a bit of a crazy lunatic. Really, I'm one of those characters where 99% of the time I'm up there, but obviously I do get my down days as well. But I like to normally show my happy side to most of my mates. I think I don't know. I think there's many words I've used to describe me, but definitely competitive, fun. I think competitive, fun, kind. That would do. If there was 3 words that they would use to describe me.
Okay, the last one is, what's your greatest fear?
Well, I was going to be a bit morbid and a bit dark, but I'm really scared of heights. That's why I did a parachute jump and a bungee jump, to try and overcome my fears. So I'm actually really, really weird around being high up. Yeah.
Did that work? Did any of them work?
No, it didn't work whatsoever. I thought it would. I jumped out of an airplane and I was like, yeah, this will solve it. And I literally fainted when I hit the ground. I was like, never again. I did a bungee jump and I thought, I'm not doing that again. So yeah, no, my greatest fear, I suppose, heights. So if you want something a bit more deep, I suppose my greatest fear is failure and letting people down.
And you've definitely not done that, Ewan. I say thanks for your time and your honesty. Our aim of this podcast is around really getting in between the nuts and the bolts of performance sport. And I think some of the messages that you've given the listeners and viewers are really going to resonate with, obviously, the time that we're in at the moment, but also some of the challenges. So thanks a lot.
No, pleasure. Honestly, guys, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we could have spoke to Ewan for hours.
I know.
So about 70 minutes of Ewan's time. He's such a nice guy, so bubbly. But I think for me, when we got down to talk to Ewan about what's important to him, he's a family man, but he's also had some real struggles. And he's mental health wise, anxiety. He wants to give back and he wants to educate those that as a dad and as a young man, as an athlete and as a retired athlete, he still struggles with that. And he wants us to know that it's okay to have those struggles, but also it's really important to talk.
Definitely. And I think we said it during the podcast that we hope that so many people watching that are struggling or going through something similar can really take something away from what Ewan said. You know, he was really open to talk about the mental health struggles that he's had throughout his career and also, you know, in retirement as well. And I think it's really important to be able to speak out and to have someone to talk to as well. So he said some really great messages, and I'm really hoping that people enjoyed the podcast, but also took something away from it as well. But like you say, we were expecting really lighthearted, but it was so open, honest, and just amazing for him to speak so openly to us on this podcast. So we're really thankful for him for that.
And I think it's really important that the guests that we have are transparent and open with us, because you, the viewer and the listener, want that from the athletes that we do talk to, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those athletes that we can obviously relate to you as the listener and the viewer, and hopefully add value to your day as well. So we're thankful for him for being so open. And anybody else that you think you'd like us to get on the show and interact with, please feel free to comment and send us those messages, because we're always open for that feedback. So, and thank you for your ongoing support.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode. This has been Track and Ball Podcast. I'm Ellen White.
And I'm Rich Whitehead.
Cross comes in. White with the header. 1-0 England.
And here comes Whitehead. It's gold for Great Britain.